Can hear us?
Yeah, of course you can.
So, I guess, Mr. Ibrahim, you are on Zoom with us, right?
Yes, I am here.
This is Dr. Nabeel. We are physically here in the stand, so I'm assuming you can moderate from abroad. And
Hi, this is Samar.
With me here. No? It's a little bit. We're ready to go, Mr. Ibrahim. So,
Can we start or?
Dr. Samar and myself are already here, so it's up to you. But we are
waiting for Aymanouyel and the rest of the team to join us.
Others are online to join. You can check that or physically.
I'm here, I tell you. I'm here. Aymanouyel is here.
Yep.
Hi,
Hi, Aymanouyel.
Hi.
Hello, this is Jeff Lees. I'm joined as well.
You are welcome, Jeff. Welcome, Lucia and Aymanouyel.
Thank you, Dr. Yoon.
Okay, let's start our panel. Okay, hello everyone. It's my pleasure to be with you virtually today on such a great gathering that cover one of the cutting-edge subjects nowadays. I would like to thank all the organizers of this awesome forum that represented by Professor Abdul Latif and Dr. Muhammad. First of all, let me introduce myself. I am Ibrahim al-Jarrah from the University of Jordan. I'm an associate professor and researcher of big data mining and artificial intelligence, and happy to moderate this this third panel, which is entitled by AI technologies and its contribution to the future of the world digital and the digital economy. We will talk about healthcare and education and the future sustainable cities. Before we start our discussion, let me go through our outlines of the panel. We'll introduce, we will get some introduction about our panel, and we'll introduce our great speakers, great guests here, and we'll start then our discussion, and we'll back at the end with get some questions of the audience. Actually, as we know, artificial intelligence is a wide ranging topic that enables people to rethink and how to integrate information, analyze data, and use the resulting insight to improve decision-making process in general, and already transforming every walk of life. There is many positive perspectives in employing or using artificial intelligence for society, for healthcare and education, and make our life more easier. Actually, the artificial intelligence can dramatically improve the efficiency of our workplaces and can augment the work humans can do. Also, AI takes over repetitive or dangerous tasks to freeze up the human workers to work with work they are better equipped for the tasks that involve creativity and other empathy, among others. AI can play a good role in healthcare. Healthcare is obvious sector deploy AI. There is a huge and vast amount of data coming from the healthcare sector, and plenty of opportunities to improve the quality and its products and its services by making them more intelligent and intelligible. Also in education, artificial intelligence had a potential to address some biggest challenges in education today, innovative some teaching, learning styles and learning practices. Also, we can use the AI in many benefits for both students and teachers. Another perspective actually for AI, we'll focus in this panel, we'll talk about the AI skills, skill set, what's expected for the workforce to have some skills in AI and other related topics, because AI can help them to get opportunities in for employment and others. Also, we will talk about the AI ethics, which is one of the important perspective in AI, and also we have our experts to talk about this topic actually in details. Let me introduce our, please allow me to welcome our great and respected guest in this panel, Professor Nabeel القاضي. He's the president of Khwarizmi International College. He has almost 30 years of experience in academia and more than 18 years of experience in the management of higher education institution with exposure in Europe, Caribbean and Middle East and North Africa. Academic Dr. Al-Qadi is conferred the higher education quality expert and external reviewer in several accreditation bodies. Also, let me welcome Dr. Jeff. This is the president of CERT Nexus. Jeff is responsible for advances the company mission for closing the emerging technologies skills gap. He has 25 years of experience within training and certification industry, serving in general management and practice leadership roles. Jeff combines his passion for professional performance with technology to bring changes within global organization while improving the opportunities for individuals in emerging technology. Also, we have Samar الفرا. She is a senior fellow of advanced higher education in UK, and she is a Semetro member, Ontario, Canada, and vice president of American Medical Association, MRAs. She is also head of AI and healthcare unit at AIJWF at United Emirates. Also, Samar presented and participated and did more than 150 scholar activities in international conference. She has many papers and articles in medical imaging, diagnostics, efficiency, and other stuff. Also, let me welcome Professor Aymanouyel Goufi. She is an artificial intelligence ethicist and very expert in AI ethics and philosopher of technology. He is a co-director and co-founder of the Global AI Ethics Institute and of the Digital Ethics Firm. He is also consultant in ethics applied in AI with technology companies and startups. Dr. Goufi is also research associate of institution in France, Germany, Morocco, and Canada. Finally, we have Lucia. She is a founder and at Lucia Dual Consultancy, co-founder of Behavioral Shift. She has many years experience in the print and online media, working in UK and Europe and Middle East. If you have any questions to our guest, you can use the menti.com and enter the number or the ID on the screen to ask a question, or you can use the webinar Q&A's tab. Let me start with Dr. Al-Qadi to ask him about how can AI be used in higher education? How can it be help preparing tomorrow's leader? Dr. Al-Qadi,
thank you.
welcome.
Thank you for this interesting question. Let me first start by maybe covering the different area of usage of artificial intelligence in education. Many might think only about the artificial intelligence in the delivery mode, which is not the case. If we look to the education cycle, we have the first step, which are screening of the students and choosing your students. And then you have the educational process with a lot of course delivery, where you want to focus on the learner experience. And during that learning experience, you have also a phase of feedback, that you want to give, and you want to customize and personalize the education experience to the students. And then you want to immerse them in a close to life or close to reality. So you will need simulations, and finally you will assess them and you will evaluate them. So let's agree first that artificial intelligence today is used on all those steps. And let me give you a few examples on what is happening in that. Starting by the first, which is the screening and retention. I think if there are any HR manager available in the room, they will agree with me that they are using today a lot of tools based on artificial intelligence when they are screening the CVs and hiring. I think we know about telemetry, Hertrial, Bima, Array, Entelo, HardScore, and others. Well, believe it or not, those tools are being customized for education. For example, the Arab University in Kuwait and another university called the Rocket School in France use an artificial intelligence tool for screening the students who apply. And you might say, why? Well, first of all, the machine, when given with a set of criteria, will be more accurate than the human. That's for sure the case. So the initial screening will happen through that. And I believe this is a way that will improve the education, because in fact, no matter how we can be accurate as a human, on the first, we might miss some parameters. So why not benefiting from the artificial intelligence in guiding better the students? Do they fit this program or not, based on profile analysis, based on a kind of question? And of course, I'm not saying the machine will make the final decision. The machine will provide you with a screening, with a scoring, and will tell you, look, those people seems more fitting to this program or not. So this is one area when we can use artificial intelligence, in fact, in our screening processes to make sure that we are getting a fit for purpose students. Secondly, during the delivery, a lot of things can be done. For example, at Khawarizm International College, one of our biggest departments is the health science department. And in those programs, we are using high fidelity simulator based on 88 to 99% of artificial intelligence that will simulate situation of COVID-19, people under respirator, or we cannot do better than the machine there. So the artificial intelligence here is helping us by using those high fidelity simulator, input the students without risking human life in accurate situation and see how they're gonna react to it, how they will be able to manage the situation. The same in the media department, we have a studio of production and they are facing every day, broadcasting on our YouTube channel. So during the delivery, it is very, very important to rely on artificial intelligence, once again, not to replace the teacher, but to support the teacher. And for example, the University of California, San Diego, they created an intelligent tutoring system. In fact, for some math, you don't know if you are speaking to a teacher or you are speaking to a machine. Of course, this requires a lot of processing, a lot of simulation. But again, this is an example how artificial intelligence can help in education in providing a better teaching learning experience to the students, an experience that is more engaging, an experience that is more close to what they're gonna face tomorrow. And this morning, Professor Abdul Latif and other colleagues were speaking about how important it is to engage the student and the Generation Z, or the Z generation as it's called. And I think Gamification is one of the major factors. You know, those generations like games, they like clicking, using a very simple tool like Kahoot, you know, and include it in your education and include it in the engagement of the students. And again, allow me to refer to Khawarizm International College. During the pandemic, we did not cut off the relation with the student. All the students' affairs activities continuing through Kahoot. And today, even on face-to-face, we're using the same. So this is another example where higher education, you know, can benefit from the artificial intelligence in terms of gamification and in terms of giving a better experience to the students. And the last one is giving the feedback. If there are some people from the quality assurance agencies, they will tell us, hey, giving the feedback to the students. How important it is to give a personalized feedback. And let me ask my colleague teacher here, how difficult and tedious it is to give a personalized feedback to every student on every homework he's giving. If you are teaching 3 to 4 courses and you are having 20 to 30 students on each, and you have 4 assessments in each, mathematics, 4 times 4 times 30. You know, it's 8 times 30. So you're gonna have around 250 assessment with maybe 4 to 5 questions. So 1,000 personalized feedback to give to each student. Very complicated, very time consuming. We would like the faculty member to focus on something else. And why not having a machine to give the automated feedback? And here, allow me to mention one experiment. The Open University UK, they use a tool called Open Essayist. And Open Essayist will give you a personalized and customized feedback to the students. And all those examples are showing us, look, we can give a better experience to the students. We can allow them to have a personalized curriculum. And personalized curriculum will go through profiling of the students. We all measure outcomes. We are all struggling with that. Think about having an artificial intelligence who will do the nitty-gritty thing and aggregate the data and the data mining for you and come back to every faculty member with a profile. Why your students is failing, why he's doing better, what kind of information I should provide him. We have seen some softwares. I have in mind one company from France, you know, providing a software that will tell you when you should start revising for your exam and what assessment you should do. And is it better for you to see a video or to read the book representing the video? So those are examples, to answer your question, where the artificial intelligence can help in creating a better learning atmosphere.
Thank you, Professor Al-Qadi, for this great answer. And we have to move to the next question with Dr. Jeff.
If you allow me, we should not look to artificial intelligence as technology and use it for purpose of use. We should use it as an added value way for education. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for a great answer. Let us move to the next question with Dr. Jeff and ask him what's the impact of skills and fulfilling AI aspirations of government and private industry, because it's a very important topic.
Thank you, Dr. Ibrahim, for the question, and thank you everyone for joining us today. So in answering this question, we could start with a recent report from Brookings Institution, which has noted that skills, along with non-people elements of AI, such as computing power, investments, research papers, and patents, will have a significant impact on governments and other industry to fulfill their aspirations. Without qualified people, AI implementations are not likely to meet their full potential. So therefore, it's imperative to teach basic AI awareness to all levels of education and within workforce development, as we're doing today in regards to cyber awareness. So again, that means everyone should have a basic understanding of what AI is. Most of us think about AI, we think about it as science fiction, but in reality, is what the panelists are sharing today, we're actually using it in our everyday lives today, whether personal or professional. We also need to enable non-technical professionals to better lead AI projects. So your product and project managers, they need to have, again, a foundational understanding of what AI is. And also those across the organization need to be better informed consumers of AI technologies. So in an organization, as we were just sharing, right? If you're in HR, you're using AI today. If you're in a sales or marketing capacity, likely to be using AI, supply chain management, et cetera. We need to understand that those technologies are already being used across our workplaces today, same in public ministries, in other forms as well. And as important, we also need to expand the funnel and educate more people to develop the core technical skills, which we will use to then develop and implement AI. So if we continue on focusing on only the core channels of talent, well, like we have to date, then we're going to see a very uneven use of AI that will truly benefit the few while reaping the benefits from many. So the fact is today, if we look at AI and its dispersal, it is highly concentrated amongst big tech companies, certain other companies that invested first in other industries or sectors, and in research institutions. And to make it more universal, we really need to, again, invest in that computing infrastructure, invest in research, invest in those that are going to patent their work, but most importantly, invest in all people. So we are educated consumers. We're leading products and projects that are going to be responsible technologies that are going to do good. And again, we have enough core technologies, skill sets to be able to implement those projects. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jeff, for this answer. And we'll move to the next questions with Dr. Samar El-Farra and ask her from her expertise and how much can we trust AI in the field of healthcare?
Thanks for the question. And I think this is the first question that we had in terms of concerns about AI accuracy. And the short answer to this question is no. We do not trust AI in the field of healthcare. And but there's a longer answer. The reason as to why we don't do that is because of the simple fact that we are handling morbidity, mortality, and human lives when we are entrusting artificial intelligence. Unlike the simulators that were used in Khwarizmi and also in HCT, high fidelity simulators have nothing to do with human lives, I mean, in terms of safety. But in this case, it's a different ball game. I'm trying to get some slides up here because I'm trying to get you into IT. Right, that's fine. I was trying to get you into, I think, a virtual reality trip, whereby we as healthcare providers, healthcare professionals, had to go through, double majoring. I had to double major in artificial intelligence to be able to understand the tools that we are about to use. There isn't a single tool out there that is deployed without reviews. So I'll just give you an example. The last tool that I have reviewed has to do with CAT scans. CAT scans that we perform on patients for cancer, especially for those ones which are under surveillance, have to be using lower dose of radiation. Doses of radiation affect the patient's well-being. They might induce cancer down the road. And the exposure to radiation is basically governed by standards of the IAEI, the International Atomic Energy Agency, that has nothing to do with Chernobyl, by the way. It has to do with medical exposures. Now, the dilemma with follow-up or surveillance for those patients is that sometimes we have to produce what we call noisy images. and noisy images are a product of lower radiation dose, which is a must, a clinical must. Now, as healthcare providers, we have to have enough knowledge to be able to decide which neural network is suitable for a solution. And this is a complicated, issue. We have to have enough knowledge to understand the data sets that we are using, how we're training the neural networks that we are picking. We need to identify the ground truth and whether or not it's error-free. There's also the target population that we need to address. It has to be a good proxy for the population that you're about to serve. In this case, is cancer patients. Also, the cohorts that you recruit in a study have to be enough. We're talking about sometimes 1,000 different cases, especially when we are talking about a low prevalence, disease. There's also the ethical considerations, and ethical considerations in this area are a little different when compared to other topics that we were talking about. So basically, there's a scale of complexity and risk. So as the human task that we are trying to mimic, the human intellect that we're trying to mimic, increases in terms of the cognitive complexity, the level of risk is increased, and thus the ethical considerations are a little bit more tight. So you're looking into, you have to be qualified to be able to verify your data, your algorithm ethics. You need to have algorithm transparency. You're also looking into the fact that whoever, and I think this is pretty much with every research. So every human subject that you recruit has to be ethically verified to be able to be subjected to, an intervention. I had a few slides to show you how quote-unquote complicated, and some of us are not prepared for this in the healthcare sector, but we have to really re-educate ourselves. Engineers and programmers cannot do this for us, and it has to be interdisciplinary before we can deploy and be confident with an artificial intelligence tool. Again, as I said, and I reiterate, no, in the healthcare sector, we do not trust the output of an artificial intelligence until we subject it to validation. And when we, I liked one of the, I think it was one from France, a professor from France, who said, it would be nice if we have some fake news out there, something that we like, but we can't afford that in medical imaging, for example. If you end up with false negative, it means that the patient has no metastasis, but the patient has metastasis and needs to be addressed to, and that's a disaster, or a false positive sometimes. And if it's a false positive, then, the patient gets out saying, well, I have a tumor, but he or she doesn't have a tumor. Again, this is very critical, ethically disturbing to have something like that. So before we deploy a tool, we all review that, and it's an interdisciplinary, if you will, activity. We're also looking into how the artificial intelligence neural networks were trained. We're looking into whether or not they were trained on data that were simulated, real images. Are we talking about transparent protocols, non-declared protocols? Because, people don't want to declare sometimes because of money. Qualitative, quantitative, also this needs to be addressed. Are you, using your artificial intelligence tool on real patients or a phantom? Are you using this on retrospective, prospective? And lastly, there's always that, which is things that, it doesn't make any sense. The artificial intelligence machines decides to do something that doesn't make any sense to you, and results don't make any statistical relevance. And I think this is, that's not me. Science says this is due to—
Let me interrupt you, Dr. Summer, because we have short time for other questions. We have to move to the next question. and we can
completed this, so let me just wrap
Thank
up
you.
with one thing. Given all those concerns, the answer to your question is no, we don't trust artificial intelligence until we validate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And now we have to move to the next question, and we can focus on the AI ethics with Professor Aymanouyel and ask him about AI ethics. Is a hot topic today, as we know all of us. What can we foresee in the field of the next years based on the AI ethics? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ibrahim, for this question. A really interesting question, definitely, and then thanks to the organizer for inviting me to this this conference. If we want to answer this question, the first thing that we have to know is where we are in order to know where we are going. Right? Lots of topics have been addressed, and especially by Dr. Samar about ethics. Basically, there are something that I just want to stress here. The first thing about AI ethics is that it's a hot topic. That's true, but not everywhere in the world. This is my experience moving a lot and working with many parts of the world. There are some places where AI ethics is not even a question. It's not something that people are, concerned about. So that's the first thing we should, and I say that, and especially in the Western world, we should also take into account that the rest of the world does not focus on AI ethics. So it might be a hot topic here. It might not be a hot topic in other places. The second thing is that because we're talking about education, there is a strong lack of education in AI ethics. We are all talking about ethics. We can read ethics everywhere. We can hear about ethics everywhere, but there is a strong lack of education in ethics. And when I say ethics, that's something that I really want to stress, is that ethics is philosophy. Ethics is not the law. Ethics is not about communication. Ethics is not about political orientation. It's about philosophy. If you don't have the philosophical background, then you cannot do real ethics. You're doing what I call cosmetics. It's just a way to hide, the ugly world behind a veil of beautiful word. So this is really something we have to take into account. Third point is that lots of companies in the West are concerned about ethics, but they do not feel like it's something that it's that important. What I mean is that in their list of priorities, it's still really low. They understand that there is something to be done in the field of ethics because there are regulations, because there are some requirements by the population and by institutions, but they do not feel like it is enough important to invest into, let's say, ethical thinking. So those 3 points, I think we have to move forward to something that will be much more focused on ethics. In the field of AI ethics, we have to be very careful about the fact that for the moment, the West is leading the discussion about AI ethics. And my experience working once again with China, with India, with South America, with the Middle East region, lots of people are really concerned about the fact that at some point, that might be something that I'm condemning highly, some kind of cultural hegemony from the West. So I've seen, and I can feel that in some places, there is a sense that some places, some culture have to bring their own perspective on AI ethics and not just, accept the one that are coming from the Western world. In education, I think that there is something that is moving really slowly. I can see that in France, I can see that in Canada, I can see that here and there. But what we really need is not to train people to do what is expected by the market, but we have to train them to think by themselves, to develop this kind of critical thinking that is really important. When we talk about healthcare, the healthcare industry, I've been working on some cases with disease inspection group in Frankfurt. The stakes are so high because we're talking about lives of people. The stakes are so high that we cannot just be happy with people that are, ticking boxes regarding the GDPR or regulation that have been set by the European Union. We need people that will make strong decision based on deep reflections on ethics. And then the other point about companies is that they really have to take into account that in the future, there will be a growing expectation from public opinion for companies to develop and use and market AI system that will be ethically acceptable. That's something really important. To wrap that up, I just want to say that we have to be really careful. We were talking about trust toward AI. We have to be careful of the gap between the narrative that has been created surrounding AI ethics and the reality of AI ethics in the world we live. And the gap is really, really, really wide. And at some point, we have to make it narrower. We really have to work on that just to make sure that we are all talking about the same thing when we're talking about AI ethics, that we are accepting different perspectives, not trying to impose our own perspective and our own, perception of what is acceptable and what is not acceptable.
Thank you, Professor Aymanouyel, for this answer. And now back to Professor Al-Qadi to ask him about what will be the shape of the future university and how human and AI will educate the youth of the tomorrow. I think it's very related to the first question.
Thank you very much. I think the University of Tomorrow should benefit from the artificial intelligence. First of all, let me speak about the technological side and then about the new dilemma or new paradigm. A lot of technologies has to be integrated and to be made low cost to assure that we have an inclusive education. First of all, I want to say to my colleagues, educator, don't worry, artificial intelligence will not replace the teacher. I don't believe that. I believe the artificial intelligence will come to help the educators. For example, we can have no more expensive textbook. Information and data is available everywhere for everyone with a lower cost. We can include all the people with a special needs because the artificial intelligence will do speech to text, text to speech conversion in, so that we're not excluding anyone. We will also have everything or more hands-on practice. If we use in a good way the 3D printing, everything will be in a 3D model, and that will enhance the student creativity. We can have the use of biometric to track the effectiveness and the attractiveness and the engagement of the students, whether they are in the classroom, on the physical campus, or on a virtual way. Maybe we will have this metaverse with hologramma. So technically, artificial intelligence should be embedded in a way that will allow the learner to have a better experience. But that will require that we move from an education system when we are teacher-centered and curriculum-centered to an education system where we are learner-centered. So the University of Tomorrow will be more like a big EdTech club. We are all together in this EdTech club. Part of us are here, part of us are remotely. We have a lot of tools, a lot of technologies. We interact together. If we are learner-centered, I don't mind if I'm giving you a course of mathematics or physics. What I'm mindful of is, do you acquire the needful skills and competencies for tomorrow? And how can I prepare you to use them the best on the market of tomorrow? So the University of Tomorrow will be a kind of brainstorming big room where you can access whenever you want to whatever resources. Faculty member will be more as educator tutors. They are your coach for life. You choose your curriculum. You make, of course, it's not a fully free choice, because I'll give you a global containers and you will decide how many hours of physics you need, 10 or 20. The curriculum today is telling you 10, maybe you need only 2. Maybe I need 20 and some need only 2. So I believe the University of Tomorrow would be this flexi, digital, real environment where there is a mix, and that we will meet still in physical space, design it differently, as well said by Professor Abdulatif Shamsi this morning, not necessarily as a mall-like. I will tell it as an EdTech club-like, You can have your coffee and at the same time you are interacting with an avatar, and at the same time, it's like a Netflix. See, when you go today in Netflix, my Netflix is different from summer Netflix because I'm profiled differently. So they will present to me what will help me to go better. That's for me, the University of Tomorrow. I'm a further believer that we need to use smartly artificial intelligence. It should not be a source of cost, the opposite. It should be a way to make education more accessible to everyone in a different way, and that require a huge mind shift of educator That's why, for example, again, at Khwarizm International College, we made the introduction of artificial intelligence application as a course in all the curriculum and in all, preparing the people to deal with artificial intelligence, to understand it, to know how they can customize it for better. So we believe the University of Tomorrow is a space of brainstorming, of ideation, of creativity, where the tools are made available in a lower cost, anytime, anywhere, for anyone. That's the university of the future, and the future is here, is starting today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for this slide. The next question actually for Professor Jeff, and ask him how is AI impacting our ability to meet our global sustainability goals?
Great. Thank you for this question. I think it's all important for those who aren't familiar with the sustainability goals. There are 17 different goals that we've chartered to meet to have a more responsible and positive outcome in our world today. And to start, I want to quote Vivian Ming, who said, AI might be a powerful technology, but things won't get better simply, by adding AI. So with that said, AI holds great potential for us to achieve all sustainable development goals, from ending hunger and poverty to achieving sustainable energy, preserving biodiversity. But one study states that AI could help achieve 79% of the sustainable development goals. Some examples include applying AI to improve traffic management, enhance the efficiency of renewable energies, more targeted irrigation in agriculture, improve the efficacy of supply chains for foods and other goods, create more personalized learning experience, as Professor Nabeel has shared with us, and the diagnostics of treatments of various diseases, as Professor Summer has shared with us as well. There are many more examples, and with appropriate investments into solving these goals while also furthering industry, and actually furthering industry is one of the goals of themselves, along with innovation, we can achieve so much quickly. But we need to realize that AI is transformative to our society as electricity was, refrigeration, the computer, and the internet, but even holding greater potential. So we really need to think of AI in that context, right? As think about prior to electricity and what electricity has done. Refrigeration, right, has allowed us to essentially be able to ship goods around the world, to be able to store them. The computer, right, it is, again, fundamentally changed our society, and the internet soon thereafter. And AI is going to have, again, this same potential impact on society, but again, it can be used for good and has the potential, again, with our sustainable development goals, for us to achieve so much in the world today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Jeff. Now we'll move to another questions and ask Lucia about the media and what is the required from the media to assist in the upcoming developments in AI, and how the AI will impact the media shape in the future. Lucia, you are muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Now, after being in the media, as I say, I've been in the Middle East, the UK, I'm in New Zealand now. And I would say I sort of thought about that quite a lot. And the real issue, I think, with the media is that they're really sort of quite conservative. They don't really embrace new technology very quickly. They're not willing to do that. It takes them a while to adjust. Journalists, with AI, there's the fear that they'll lose their jobs, they'll be taken over by robots. But in fact, the idea of AI is that they're freed up to do more quality work. And they haven't realized that. I was in London when we moved to desktop publishing. And that was an ordeal. Nobody wanted to do that. We were used to seeing everything on paper. And to move from paper to screens, you know, and people do not want to embrace AI, and it's fear. It's fear and fear of the unknown and fear that their jobs will be taken over. So the media needs to be more responsive to taking up AI. And they also need to recognize that AI in certain areas of the media can be very good, particularly in HR, in administration, in content aggregation. It's so much better. But there is an issue that it comes an ethical issue again, is bias. You know, how much you have to deal with algorithms, how much is bias before it's, you know, programmed in if you're getting the content. Take at the moment, you know, do we get more Chinese content, more Russian content? That will be all quite interesting, I think, as to what happens. But I think the question of bias is actually really important, but people need to realize also AI is very good in prediction and forecasting and customer personalization. I mean, I was working for a new flyer service, although it was only marginally partly using AI, but it was all personal data that could be given out to all the subscribers. They could get exactly what they wanted. And I think that's where AI can be very good in the media. And it can be very good for tagging, for all sorts of things. But journalists have to not be scared of it. And part of that is probably it needs to be used right at the very beginning, so everybody is used to it. Trying to get people to change is going to be quite difficult, but I think it's something that can be done, but you have to think about all the issues of the ethics and the bias in that.
Thank you so much, Lucia, for your answer. And now, actually, because we have a tight time, we have 4 minutes and we have 2 questions. I don't know if I can ask Dr. Samar about the future of foresight of AI in healthcare. How far off are we from expecting patients to be fully majority attended to by robots rather than human health care providers? If you are in 2 minutes, can give us an overview about this. Thank you.
Yes, in 2 minutes, we are having 100% care because of the fact that we are human beings and we like to be attended by human, care providers. The matter of the fact is, and this is research, empathy does affect patients' well-being, and it affects the prognosis. It affects cancer patients, it affects diabetics, and there's a lot of literature that talks about even giving birth gets affected by the level of empathy that the patients experience throughout their journey, of the disease. We are far off from having a single robot attending to patients' requirements. And I think going back from the eye of autonomy, processes, tasks like processes, workflows, triaging, we're ahead of the game. Yes, there isn't higher risk associated, but when it comes to diagnosis, prognosis, or maybe even treatment and intervention, we're a little far off because of the human factor, if I may say. And that's a wrap up, but I'd like to also second the fact that the robots are not going to replace us. They're not going to replace faculty for sure. And this is coming from an academic. It's going to take a while before we let go for robots. And that wraps up. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Samar. And the last question actually for Professor Aymanouyel, because we have to talk about global regulation. And in your opinion, what kind of ethical global regulation can we or should expect based on this development of AI?
I could just try to make it short. And once again, building on what I've said before, my concern today is that mainly regulations are Western-centered, was concerned regarding Western-centered. I've just heard about biases. That's a really interesting topic when you dig into biases, because we feel like biases are really important. But when you look really at biases and you just step back, you look at the whole world, what you see, the way that we are addressing biases is really superficial and really Western oriented, with a perception that is superficially focused on what we call discrimination, while biases are something that are way more complex and that in some places, once again, are not a problem at all. So when it comes to governance of AI, the first thing is that there is no way that we will have any kind of legal regulation. We will have only ethical regulation, maybe what we call soft law, which is something that does not really exist, but in between. And the second point is that we really have, and this is a call that I'm making here, we really have to make sure that this regulation will encompass perspective from the non-Western world. Really important. We might disagree on the geopolitical level with China. We might disagree on the geopolitical level with other countries all around the world. That doesn't mean that they do not have a say in AI ethics. They have their own perspective on what is acceptable and what is not. And whatever we think about it, we will have to deal with that. We'll have to play with them, right? So my concern is that we are moving toward what we call a universal code of ethics, which would be kind of, once again, a Western hegemony, while what we need is discussion, multilateralism. There is no perfect solution, right? But it's better to have discussion than to impose your own perspective, because on the long run, that could be really critical for all of us, especially with China, which will definitely be the leader in AI quite soon.
Thank you so much, Professor Aymanouyel. And now we end with our panel. And I would like to thank our guests for sharing their knowledge and actually put or give us some very unique experience from their perspective. And thank you all for listening, and see you next panel. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the first panel discussion, participants. Now, we're going to move to a short break, and we'll be back within 30 minutes.